Welcome to the Rude Dog Show. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rudy Reyes. Thank you for joining me as I was talking about how I wanted the software to work, and because sometimes it's a pain in the butt, no pun intended, it started to work. Thank God for that. Well, anyway, welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me this afternoon on the Rude Dog Show on WBLZSports.com. And man, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of sports, but there is one sport missing. And I know you're all probably waiting and wondering what that is. But if you're not listening to the show, make sure you download the WBLZ Sports app, and I'll just wait here until you do. No, not really. I don't have that much time. I only have an hour to bring you a rundown on a variety of sports topics covering the Steelers OTAs with Ray Fittipaldo, who covers it for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and a Lost in Translation story you certainly want to listen to. And no, this isn't a sports movie, although it probably could be, including how Royals ended the Astros win streak and much, much more. Welcome to the Rude Dog Show, Ray Fittipaldo. Ray, how are you? Thank you for joining me today on the show.
I'm good, Rudy. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. It's always a pleasure getting the insight from the insiders. And let's look at Steeler OTAs as something that you've covered very heavily. Of course, for those that don't know what OTA means, organized team activities, and where it all starts and stands right now. There's a lot of new players. They're meshing and stretching with the other new faces, as well as some veterans. One veteran in particular, which hadn't agreed upon a new contract, was Lawrence Timmons, who left to the Miami Dolphins. Were the Steelers in a hunting mindset, or were they in a position where they were contemplating possibly putting something on the table, allowing Lawrence Timmons to stay as a Steeler?
No, I think they would have accepted Lawrence back, but they were going to do it on their own terms. And when the Miami Dolphins gave him a guarantee, I think a 2-year, $12 million contract, and I think 11 of that is guaranteed, the Steelers weren't going to go there. I think they were, prepared to offer him maybe, $4 or $5 million a year. But when the Dolphins guaranteed all that money, I think that pretty much sealed his fate in Pittsburgh, and they were ready to move on to Vince Williams. Now, you could say, hey, they showed interest in Donta Hightower, and, they brought some draft prospects in, so maybe they're not all that high on Vince, but I could tell you they made that move last August where they went ahead and re-signed Vince Williams to a longer-term contract, and I think he's very capable of being a bridge starter for a year or two until they go out and find that next, that next Timmons or that next Ryan Shazier. So I think Vince Williams is fine for a year or two. He's not going to be a superstar, but I think he's going to be very capable stepping in for Lawrence Timmons.
I do as well. Vince Williams, I had actually interviewed Vince Williams a couple of years ago, in between seasons, of course, and me and him were talking. I asked him, I said, what are you trying to get out of the next season? And he said, I'm just here to get better. That's all I want to do is get better. And it's almost as if he was waiting behind Lawrence Timmons, thinking, well, when am I going to get a chance? When am I going to get an opportunity? Steelers put him on special teams, made lots of great special teams tackles, a lot of great stops for special teams. And I believe that they had enough faith in him, as well as Vince Williams having enough faith in himself to be effective and part of that DB rotation. Do you see him in and out of the lineup based on the formation they're going to use, or is he their every down DB?
You're talking about Vince Williams again?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think, I don't think they're going to use him like Lawrence Timmons. Lawrence was a guy who certainly last year stayed on the field in pretty much all situations. That wasn't the case the previous year. Robert Colton got a lot of time in the dime, and they would take Timmons off the field. So I would expect this year, since Vince Williams' forte isn't pass coverage, that they might go back to more of a dime look, and they would take Vince Williams off the field in a lot of situations. But I think in when you're first and 10 and you're in your base defense and you're in run situations, I think Vince Williams is a pretty good option at inside backer. Rudy, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they configure that back end when you do go to nickel and dime. is William Gay going to play slot and safety this year? Have they maybe seen enough of Robert Golden that they think they can maybe do better and maybe move a Gay into that role, or maybe you can, move a Cody Sensabaugh into that role, or any of this, any of these new guys that they've brought in or drafted over the past few years. So, I'm a little bit curious to see how they go with nickel and dime. But when you're talking about the base defense, I think Vince Williams is going to be just fine as your buck inside linebacker.
Yeah, I do as well. I look for a lot of great things bringing in Cody Sensabaugh, and it makes a little bit of sense because you want a depth guy in that backfield. I think Sensabaugh brings that, and one of the reasons why he does so well is because of his rotation. He knows how to backpedal. He has great athleticism. He has great reach, long arms, big hands. The guy is going to be someone that will be a disruptor, similar to that of Mike Mitchell, from what I recall of Mike Mitchell last year, laying the hits, and the hits kept on coming from Mike Mitchell. I think that's a Cody Sensabaugh type play, and then those guys will do great in the backfield as well. Ryan Shazier, we're talking about Shazier for half a moment, seemingly feels comfortable right next to Vince in the backfield, at least in the base defense, right alongside of him, and it gives them some depth. When we look at Ryan Shazier, it's almost hard to gauge who he is off of the field because who he is on the field is an absolute beast. I had a chance to interview him on field during his rookie year, and I had asked him while he was walking down, actually leaving the practice at St. Vincent College. I said, look, what do you think people believe about who you are from a mental standpoint? Do they believe that you're one of the smartest guys to enter the draft? Is it, what is it about you? He said, I didn't even know. I didn't know anybody thought that I was that intelligent. And I thought to myself, well, he graduated with pretty high, props, and he's extremely smart, has picked up the Steelers defense extremely well. I'm very impressed with his output. He's a very cerebral player. And in that draft class, and of course, there are some that say he's made of glass. His shoulder, he broke that. He's had some issues there as well. When you look at Ryan Shazier accumulatively, as a whole, whether it's in maybe whole or in part, because he's seen some sideline action as well, do you foresee him making even more progress this year, becoming more of a spoken about outside linebacker for the Steelers?
Well, he's coming off his first Pro Bowl, Rudy, so I think he's certainly heading in the right direction. I think for him, as has been the case since he came into the league in 2014, he's got to stay healthy, and I think he could somehow find a way to stay healthy for a full 16-game season. You might even see that Pro Bowl, go to an all-pro level. I think that's the kind of an impact that he can have on a football game. Just his problem, whether it's been knees or whether it's been his shoulder and neck, he's had a hard time staying healthy. But if he can, I think he's one of the best inside linebackers in the NFL.
I do as well. I'm a huge Ryan Shazier fan. Why? Because he brings so much from a mental standpoint, and when he puts his aptitude towards hitting someone and laying the smackdown on them, it's something I've seen him do time and time again. One particular play playing against the Bengals, it wasn't last year, it was the year previous. I mean, he just knocked the ball out in near midair because of his physicality and how he likes to let you know that you're not out of his sights. I think that's one of the reasons why Ryan Shazier ended up going to a Pro Bowl last year. And then we were talking about, and everybody wants to discuss how Martavis Bryant is back, and I like his go-getting attitude, and he's kind of always had that sense about him. But serving a year-long suspension, certainly seen a lot of humility come his direction, birth of a new child, changing his persona, trying to change the way other people see him from being this druggie to a guy who is on his way back. When you look at Martavis Bryant, is there a general consensus about who he is? And do you believe that during that 1 year long suspension, has he learned from his bads to hopefully make it good this year in the NFL with the Steelers?
Well, I think he's trying to do the right thing. He's saying all the right things, but I think everyone, including his teammates in the front office, are just sort of in a wait-and-see mode, because as much as they can can try to help him when he's at the facility. At this time of year, that's probably 4 hours max a day. Even during the season, it's only 8 hours max a day. You can't watch someone for the other 16 hours. So you just have to hope he stays on the straight and narrow. He's got a counselor here in Pittsburgh now. It seems like he's taking all the right steps to make that happen. But as we all know, drug addiction can be a difficult thing. And, the Steelers are just in the wait and see mode. I think they're hoping for the best, but, they certainly do have a lot of backup plans, Rudy, in case something does go awry again. They went out and signed Justin Hunter. They still have Darius Ayward-Bay, Sammy Coates on this team. It's not like they're counting on Martavis Bryant 100%. They certainly have backup plans just in case, and that he is another another problem with the NFL and the drug testing.
Right, and that's what I look at from him. I mean, like I said, he has a changed mad persona about him. But again, putting pencil to paper, whether or not he can execute and show, you shouldn't have to follow somebody around to make sure they're doing the right thing, doing their job, being someone productive off the field as well as on the field. So it's not the Steelers' responsibility. He needs to take ownership. I think he's aware of that, and he's going to make strides and steps to make sure he stays in the grace of goodness there with the Steelers organization, at least for the rest of his tenure while he's there. And then lastly, we're talking about the defensive rookie class of 2016. I'm impressed with Artie Burns. I'm also impressed with Sean Davis. Javon Hargrave coming up huge with a fumble return in for a touchdown. When you look at Artie Burns, and of course Sean Davis recovering from surgery right now, who do you believe this year, based on, and you can base it on last year, you can base it on OT, base it on whatever you want, whatever criteria you have chosen to do so, who do you believe will have the better year between Artie Burns, Sean Davis, or is it a collective effort in 2017?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, they both really stepped in and played pretty well, that second half of the season when they earned those starting jobs. And, anytime you, go on a long winning streak the way they've been and you go deep into the playoffs, that's only going to, build their confidence level. So, Sean Davis played with a torn labrum last year. He fought through that. I thought he was very good at times, even though he had a share of ups and downs. And I think Artie Burns, tied for the team lead in interceptions. If you're going to press me on that, I'm going to say Artie Burns with a slight edge, just because I think if they do go to the more man coverage, as they have been talking about, I think he's a guy who might be able to, thrive in that and maybe even get more than 3 interceptions this year. So Davis is a really good hitter. He can come up and thump you, and he can make some plays in the back end. But I think if they commit to playing more man coverage this year, I think you could see Artie Burns, really taking a big step and, maybe creating some more turnovers from this team.
I do as well. I loved Artie Burns playing in it with 3 interceptions. Sean Davis, I think he had a pair. And of course, Javon Hargrave impressed me up front. Certainly will be a part of that linebacker rotation, maybe on the inside, maybe an outside position for him. But hey, Ray, tell everybody where they can find your great stuff for Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and where they can follow you at.
Yeah, you can go to www.post-gazette.com, and then you can follow me on Twitter at RayFitt, FITT1.
Well, there you go. Hey, Ray, thank you so much. It's always nice, always great having you on the show. So thank you for your insight. I appreciate it.
All right, Rudy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ray. Absolutely. Take care. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ray Fittipaldo, who does so many great things there for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, giving me some insight about everything. Everything from Martavis Bryant to just absolutely everything. Sean Davis, where does Martavis Bryant fit? Is he productive for the system? Will he be on that field, barring any, well, let's just say, for lack of a better term, misjudging in relation to what he has been known, and unfortunately that may always follow him from a personal standpoint. But anyway, go to SeatGiant.com. If you use the name Rude Dog, you will get something off of your transaction. Go to SeatGiant.com to get your experience. Use hashtag #GetYourExperience, the code Rude Dog, and you may get something off of your transaction. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I'm on Facebook Live as well as on WBLZSports.com. Make sure you download the app. They always have great shows, good stuff, great guys. and great sports conversation if that's what you were looking for. And that's one of the reasons why I'm on. So I want to kind of finish off the Steelers conversation with Ray. Thank you, Ray, for joining me. I do appreciate it. I'm more concerned, not really concerned, but I'd like to see that Martavis Bryant stays on the field. He stays healthy. He doesn't have any drug relapses of any kind. He recognizes his role, his position with his team, and to be able to really put it together for not only a run in the 2017 season, but to do as he said he was going to do, to follow through with his words, because it's all about action that follows your words. Joining me now is Lou on the show, and you can get involved in the conversation as well. 216-539-967. 216-539-9967. Of course, this next topic may not sit well with some, at least for those who live in the New York area or maybe even in Boston. But it starts on the New York Yankees baseball field, where in a fourth inning mound visit from Larry Rothschild, which included a Japanese translator, Shingo Hori, it had taken one statement from a Red Sox analyst / announcer stating that foreign translators should be outlawed. I clearly suggest to be very careful when you're announcing you're on air on somebody else's network, but obviously that quickly escalated. Jerry Remy was quoted as saying as, learn baseball language. Learn. It's pretty simple. I end quote. Remy said, after play-by-play man Dave O'Brien asked him what he doesn't like about translators, he said, you break it down pretty easy between pitching coach and pitcher after a long period. Now, I don't necessarily agree with Remy's view. And like I said, he's a part of the organization. He understands the conversation, and he should be weary of what message he's trying to send out to other organizations, other teams, because it's a reflection, a complete reflection on the Boston Red Sox organization overall. O'Brien seemed to take more of a careful and cautious approach to the potentially insensitive remarks that reminded Remy the translators are there to make up for a nuance being lost in some of those conversations. Now, this morning at about 5 o'clock, a little bit after, there was a spokeswoman for the Red Sox who stated that it was clear the team did not agree with Remy's stance. Now, as a broadcaster, somebody who covers Major League Baseball, somebody who covers the NFL, somebody who covers the NCAA, somebody who's involved intrinsically in their program, is either they're at batting practice, they're in there with post-game interviews, they clearly have all the tangible things they need to make a conscious comment. And matter of fact, Nestor Ramos, a columnist at the Boston Globe, shared that message, stating that the views expressed by Jerry Remy during last night's broadcast was not shared by the Red Sox. My translation is this: if you want to break it down to what it really is that they have an issue with Remy's take on his view about outlawing translators in baseball. Now, when I say outlawing, I don't mean that you're going to find somebody with a 6-gun coming in with all guns blazing and saying, you're going to jail and that's all there is to it. No, it's not about that. It's about understanding that everybody needs translation, whether it's in pure simple English or whether it's in another language. And when I look at what Remy had said, I think it was lackluster. I think that it was possibly out of context and the line of commentary wasn't necessarily wanted. I certainly didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to see it. I didn't think I would hear that from an announcer. I was watching the Pirates and Red Sox game, Pirates and Orioles game yesterday. Of course, what a loss that is to the Pirates to add to another a snail with Saul on its tail. But I look at the Pirates and how dismal of a year they're having. This takes away and deviates from the game of baseball overall. Don't forget, the majority of Major League Baseball has Dominican Republicans in there. Dominican Republic players. It has Puerto Rican players. It has, nothing but a Latin-filled emphasis with the Asian population breaking into baseball and doing a basically darn good job. You look at Ichiro Suzuki. You look at a handful of other players who made an impact from either Korean or Japanese culture into the game of baseball. And for that line of commentary to be made that translators should be outlawed, you're basically saying that other ethnicities have no business in the game. That is my translation. Lou, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that, some of the players do need a translator because some of them don't speak English and they need help in figure out what the umpires and the officials are trying to say to them. So I think it's necessary that they do have the translators in the game. Otherwise, they're just going to be confused.
Well, you have to provide some form of clarification. If you're 1 year into the United States and you're playing baseball into your 1 year, say you make it through AAA, your name gets called, you're up, you're ready to go. I think there's a gray area. There's some type of rule by default that there's certain steps, certain pieces of conversation that need to be had by translation. And when you're a kid, it's about translating and understand your role. If you're a little kid and you're playing baseball, you don't know what a right foot first slide is. You think, I have a right foot, but what do I do with it? You have to, those things are broken down in translation to you to understand based on action. And the fact, at least at this point, again, I may be taking this out of context. I may not understand fully what Mr. Remy had meant, but my understanding of what he was trying to suggest was that you shouldn't have other cultures involved in the game of baseball and there is no room for translations in the game. That is my interpretation. That's my understanding. That is my understanding. Look, maybe in fact the archaic nature by which Mr. Remy commented was out of ignoring the fact that baseball as an entity welcomes diversifications and that translators seemingly are just a part of the game. They're just a part of the game. They're like a water boy, or they're a bat boy, or they're an integral part of a baseball system, whether it's farm league or whether it's in the majors. And I think that there's some type of fact that he's ignoring here that Major League Baseball welcomes these changes. They welcome diversity. They welcome other people from other cultures to make an impact, not only in Major League Baseball, but on the team they're playing for. I think it was out of pure ignorance to even make that statement. That's my opinion. That's how I feel, and I'm calling it like it is. Matter of fact, this isn't something new. In 2013, Major League Baseball incorporated mandatory Spanish-speaking translators, and of course, on the Red Sox team as a part of their organization. How Remy was not a part of such things is beyond me. They aren't exactly hidden. There's no smoke screen here. There's no blinders dividing the truth from fiction. It's right there in your face. As I stated earlier, it's batting practice. It's post-game interview with players. Look, his views are his views, and he's entitled to them. So is everybody else. But when you're a part of an organization, you understand the dynamics. You know who's going to be there. You know who's not going to be there. And if you want to practically claim ignorance over it, you're more than welcome to. But when you blurt out about how translators, which is an integral part of the organizational fiber, should be outlawed, the comment in of itself should be outlawed. That's all there is to it. No question. I got to take a quick break. Lou's on the phone with me. Feel free to call and be part of the conversation. We're talking about 216-539-9967. Go to SeatGiant.com to get your experience using hashtag Get Your Experience. Use Rude Dog on your transaction. You may get something off of it, but go check it out. And of course, this podcast, and you can shoot me a follow as well, will be on TheRudeDogShow.com. I am at Rude Dog Reyes on Twitter. I need to take a quick commercial break because you have to pay the bills. That's the only way that you stay afloat is by paying them. And I believe that you have to pay your dues no matter what. No matter what there is, no matter what you're doing or where you're going. I'll be right back. This is Rudy Reyes of WBLZ Sports. Hey, welcome back to the Rude Dog Show. This is Rudy Reyes at WBLZSports.com. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking an hour out, as I only have half of that left on the Rude Dog Show, WBLZSports.com. Make sure you shoot me a follow. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me those questions. If I use them on air, I will try to find a way to reward that question. And of course, I'm always working on things here. If you're a sponsor, you want to sponsor a fantastic effort by getting the show out, and namely the Rude Dog Show, to anybody out there in syndication or not, it would be fantastic to have you as a partner here on the Rude Dog Show. Feel free to send me an email at TheRudeDogShow@hotmail.com. We were talking about how Mr. Remy's comments weren't exactly taken over well by the Boston Red Sox organization, and I'm sure there was some conversation with him and them in regards to this situation. We had Ray Fittipaldo on as well. We were talking Steelers, OTAs, Martavis Bryant, Sean Davis, and Artie Burns, and how those guys will be an integral part of that secondary, and of course Sean Davis more so up front. But we'll have more of a dynamic year for the Steelers organization. Losing Lawrence Timmons to the Dolphins at 2 years at $2 million. And of course, Vince Williams will be taking the position over in some respects. I don't know what they're going to do with the secondary or how that's going to fit, but certainly there's a lot of things going on in the sporting world. But I want to switch gears, but I want to stay in Major League Baseball because for others who believe that when you look at other related news, any club in the majors who have over a .700 winning percentage in the early part of the season is absolutely unequivocally insane. It's insane. Which by all accounts makes them insanely good? Question mark. Yes, they are. Can there be only one? Well, unless you're watching TV, yes, there can only be one. You would be well on point in saying yes to both, because right now the Astros are the insanely good Astros, which could be a shot heard around the world in a cannon to the moon, at least in relation to how they're playing right now. Lou, when you look at the Astros, was this just a bump in the road for them? Do you foresee the Astros continuing, maybe going on another 11-game win streak, or maybe spotty at best?
Well, it's kind of hard to do two 11-game win streaks in a row, but I think they're gonna carry on, through much of the season. I expect at least 100-win season from this team. I mean, hey, why not just declare them the winners of the division now? They're almost unstoppable. 43-16.
Yeah, that's
2 years ago. The Astros were still a joke.
Yeah, nobody knew this is where they'd be right now. Over 700. Nobody's over 700 in Major League Baseball right now. Nobody.
Not even the Yankees.
Not even the Yankees. You're right. Look, the Astros are playing absolutely thrilling baseball because everything is working. I had Corey Aldridge, former Major League Baseball slugger. We were talking about baseball, and he was stating that everybody's working together. It's about the next man up. Everybody's playing for one another, and they're playing for the team. They're playing for what the organization has been wanting for quite some time. And Astros have never had this type of winning percentage, well, ever. I mean, they've been doing everything well. But look, all fairy tales do come to an end, or you find yourself running into bumps on the way, which is exactly what happened as they faced off against the Kansas City Royals. But you can't fail to see that relevance, though, Lou. You look at the relevance of winning those 11 games. That's astonishing, to say the least. Was the loss by Houston something that Kansas City can build on?
Not the way their season's going. I mean, because in a 162-game season, you're going to win at least all 50 games, and you're probably going to lose on that 50 games. It's the other 62 that you can't tell. I mean, the Royals this year have been absolutely horrible. I mean, this gives them a little bit of confidence, but I wouldn't get my hopes up too high over that.
No, I wouldn't either. The Houston Astros just recognized where they went. I mean, look, the bottom line is that they went on floating on air towards building a 7-1 lead over the Royals until the fourth inning. And then Kansas City began to chip away. There was a 4-run 8th inning tie game, 7-7. Moustakas came to the plate with Salvador Perez on first base in the 9th, and that's all it took. One swing, and that was your ball game. So
yeah.
I think when you look at Houston and you look at what they've been doing so far, this is basically nothing. I think this is more like a blip on the radar screen if you're in an airplane, and there's really not much more than that. But if you're the Royals, as I said, there's something to build on, something that you can put in your hat. So it's a feather in your hat. Well, it's a feather in your hat for what? A day? A night?
Yeah.
And it starts all over again?
A day or two.
Yeah, I mean, you have to find something else to believe in the long stretch of things and well over 100 games to be played in the Major League Baseball season. But what I think is this, all good things did come to an end. Last place KC Royals have seen much more deviance from glory than the Astros have basked in so far, at least this season. I usually call the hit of bumps in the road heading in the direction you're trying to get to, reading Braille. Anybody ever heard that? Reading Braille, you're driving on the road, all of a sudden you hit all the bumpers. And I say, pull over, you're reading too much Braille. Maybe somebody else needs to take the wheel for a while. Look, they aren't flashy. Yeah, the Royals are not flashy by any means.
No.
Nor are they on any type of winning streak, nor do I foresee them winning any multiple games in a row. I don't see that. You could possibly go one step further, and you could say that this is the horrible ride the Royals have been on. There's no thrills, no chills, no spills. However, the Royals did, in fact, boast, put a feather in their hat, whatever you want to call it, about how they are, quote unquote, the team which ended the Astros' 11-game win streak. Now, what most people fail to realize that this is the longest streak in the majors this year. Something to be happy about if you're the Houston Astros, which hasn't happened probably forever. Here's how the win streak actually transpired. And it was about, putting guys in the right position with that runner on first base. That's all it took. And sometimes it's the small things. And when you give up a 3-run triple to get somebody home, that is the biggest RBI of the season. I think that's the biggest RBI from Moustakas so far this year. Does he have another one down the road? I don't know. I'd like to think that the Royals can do a lot better than what they have done, but right now I don't know. I have reserves about the Royals, and they were in such a good position 2 years ago, and now they found themselves really floating on the downward hill without a raft, and that's really that's really tough. It's tough mentally when you go on a losing streak, when you go on some type of tear. And that tear includes you as being a bottom of the list. And of course, I can probably put the Pirates in there because that's where they're also headed. They're probably carrying a 2-man raft down to the river, and find themselves at the edge wondering, when do I jump off? But the Kansas City Royals are certainly just, I know, it's absolutely horrible. It's a 4-run, 8-inning, 7-7. I mean, sometimes that's all it does take is one hit. And for the Royals, it was a one hit. I guess that hit was heard around Major League Baseball as well, because it was almost as if it was an upset, like in an NCAA term. It was almost like an upset. That was my equivalent to it anyway. But I look at that situation. I don't foresee that happening a whole lot. I don't foresee Moustakas or Salvador Perez or whoever in conjunction or in relation to doing anything like this for the remainder of the season. And I could be wrong. It is baseball. It's wacky. It's crazy. It's nuts. But it could certainly happen. I don't know for the Royals, but I know it could happen to another team. But despite the 1-game blemish, and this is what other people fail to realize, unless you are talking baseball, unless you understand baseball, unless you have deep, insightful conversations about baseball, the Astros are still a Major League best 42-17. They lead the American League West by 13 games. 13 games. The closest competitors are the Angels and the Mariners. That still doesn't seem much. It's 13 games. It's ridiculous. I see Houston going on maybe a 4-game win streak. Maybe not 11 or 12 or 13, but I can tell you this, I've seen go at least a 3 or 4 game win streak because they've been playing so well. There's so many things working, everybody doing what they need to, working in conjunction with one another. But moreover, I like how they're doing it. And they're playing for one another, they're playing for the team, they're playing for the organization. And that to me, if I was a fan of these Houston Astros, and they're really choking me up because they're playing so well, they are owning their individual positions. They're owning the fact that they are putting everything together. The skipper's getting it done. Everybody's batting for one another, batting for each other. They're basically trying to chase history. They're trying to chase history, and that is allowing themselves to be put in such a position to talk about winning the AL West, which I believe at the end of the day they will. I don't see the Angels catching up. I don't see the Mariners catching up. I don't see anybody even coming close to these guys, not only in the American League West. Okay, I understand that the Yankees are still very well behind them, but not by much. And there's tons of baseball left. So jump off of the Houston Astro bandwagon, because I foresee some bumpy roads, even more so headed their direction, but nowhere near as bad as going on an 11-game win streak, all of a sudden having it snapped. Maybe a 3-game, 4-game. They're going to lose quite a bit more because there's tons of baseball left. I mentioned having Corey Aldridge on, and me and Corey we're talking about baseball. We were talking about all the different situations and dealing with players, because he's a former player. How else do you know what's going on in a player's mindset if you're not a player? I mean, there's just no way. It's impossible. Angels are 30-31. Mariners are 29-30. Rangers 27-31. Athletics fighting for air with a straw they can't seem to reach in their back pocket as they slide through the sand at 26-32. There's so many problems with all of these clubs, and it comes with inconsistencies. When you look at every single one of these teams, they're all under 500 except for the Astros. Would you think that the Astros are in the right position, Lou? Do you think that they're going to take the AL West? And if so, is there a World Series conversation ensuing?
So I think there's been a World Series conversation for instance last month. I mean, because they got to win the division, no question about it. Unless they choke severely, but I don't see it happen. So yeah, they'll win the division, and yeah, I think strongly they'll be the American League contender for the World Series.
I do as well. I look at all the leagues, all the NL West and divisions within baseball, and I look at all the teams that are currently jockeying for position, and one team that seems to be separating themselves. Talk about the National League West, and I'll talk more about this later on. But the Rockies are leading the pack in the NL West, which really surprises me, because again, they're very similar. To the from the Rockies to just Mariners. I mean, there's so many teams right now that are doing it well. Mariners obviously not one of them. I'm trying to think of the other team that saved my life, but I just can't quite get there. But Rockies 37-23, they're right up there in the ranks of having the Houston Astros, maybe some type of maybe a World Series conversation. Maybe, I don't know. Rockies seem to be, they're hovering below 700, somewhere in the 6 middle range. Dodgers 35-25, and the NL West. The Diamondbacks are certainly finding their way with an identical record, 24-36 for the Giants.
Too.
Yeah, Dodgers are right there. Padres tanking, just absolutely tanking. Yeah. I think that's, it's got nothing to do with the park. Okay, I've been to Petco. I love that park. Probably the best park. Unfortunately, they have the wrong team there because they're not playing to their potential. They're not playing like they want to be there. They're not playing like they want to be a part of the conversation of, we want to host a World Series in our house. And at 23-36, not even at 400. Absolutely horrible. They need a serious overhaul in that organization. They're just not getting it done. They're 10-20 on the road, 13-16 at home. So just not they're just not cutting the mustard. Just not cutting the mustard. But look, if you're tuning in, I'm on Facebook Live. This is Rudy Reyes on The Rude Dog Show, WBLZSports.com. Lou loves calling in. I appreciate you hanging on there, Lou. And, of course, go to SeatGiant.com, where you can be a part of the experience. Hashtag get the experience by, well, doing one thing and one thing only. Go to SeatGiant.com. Pick your venue. Pick whatever you want. Whether it's ice skating, NFL season is on the horizon. I can't wait for that, much like everybody else. As well as your baseball games in your respective area. And, of course, concert tickets. I know Metallica is coming to the Rose Bowl in July, and I will be there. I will be at that concert because I'm an old schooler, and that's just kind of how I do things. But go to SeatGiant.com, get your tickets, use your experience. Most people don't know that about me. I'm a real music aficionado, but if that if that tickles your fancy, then so be it. A huge Rush fan, Metallica, well, maybe made it at least at some point where they used to be actually a band. But anyway, don't get me wrong, Bruce Dickinson, he had cancer. I give kudos to you, Bruce, for getting back on that bus and riding it again, because you're a great guy and I've always enjoyed your music. So thank you, for continuing to do so. But when I look at regular season standings, if you want to have some type of conversation, you can always call in 216-539-996. And we're talking about a variety of things here today on the Rude Dog Show because it's almost like a free-form Wednesday. It's a hump day for some, and others it's just another day. But when you look at the bigger picture, and I mean the larger landscape of Major League Baseball, I look at the New York Yankees at 32-23, barely above 500. They just lost way too many games. They're losers of 2 in a row. And of course, you always have the Red Sox, like right there in the heart of it all. 32-25. They're also, slightly below, the New York Yankees in the American League East. Of course, Baltimore is always right there. They face off against the Pirates this afternoon in 2 of 3. Hopefully the Pirates can gain some ground and, get back into some type of position. But as me and Ray Fittipaldo were talking about offline, Pirates have a sunken ship and they capsize. So I don't know much more for their season and how long that's going to take to realize some changes need to be made in offseason moving into next year. And then we talk about Baltimore, 30-26. They're also above 500. Tampa Bay, not so much there. We were talking about a fan base in Tampa Bay that's really fickle. I don't believe that the Rays are receiving much more love there in Tampa Bay. I think that a relocate may be in their near future because they just haven't received the type of conversation that you get about all these other teams, even your Cleveland Indians, who also find themselves in a not so good situation, barely above 500. But I think right now there's a tone of the season right now in Major League Baseball, and that everybody is playing okay baseball. There are a few exceptions to that rules we've already discussed, talking about the Houston Astros, talking about the Washington Nationals, who are at almost .650 in the National League East, and the Chicago Cubs, barely above 500, not making any splashes at all. Milwaukee Brewers, also barely above 500. Everybody else is clearly below that. The Rockies are doing absolutely amazing things for the first time, I think, in years. They are leading the AL West 37-23. They're doing good. They're putting themselves, again, teams right now are playing themselves either in one direction, either in a corner or they're playing to win. Putting guys, changing lineups. The trade deadline is less than, well, let's just say almost a month away, maybe a month and a week or so away from the trade deadline. And this question's going to start swirling. Who's going to go? Who's going to be dropped off? I want to go back to the Pirates for a minute because I was talking to something that reminded me in the conversation with Corey Aldridge about Starling Marte, how Starling Marte will find himself still with the Pirates, but under a very close and watchful eye. In my opinion, the way I look at it, he was good beforehand, but now you know why he was, because he was on PEDs. Of course, you always hear this stuff from baseball players saying, well, I didn't know what I was putting into my body. And then you talk about DUIs and DWIs, and you get your Tiger Woods in conversation, and the list goes on and on and on. People that put themselves in those positions don't care about the results. They don't care about the outcome. All they care about is selfish motives from the onset. I call it like it is, and that's how it is. The baseball players, look, it's always going to happen in Major League Baseball. Someone's going to get caught for cheating. Someone's going to get caught for, a myriad of reasons or a variety of suspicions. And in the NFL, they're constantly, drug testing guys like James Harrison. He said I think his third or fourth drug test since OTA started, which is completely insane because every time they test him, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Nothing comes up. It's basically an empty wallet. You go there, someone mugs you, they find out you have no money in there. Well, they're not going to get another chance to find you again. And when I look at when I look at players and I look at the self-defeatism that is a part of saying, I'm going to take this and I'm not going to be able to get away with it. Well, you're wrong because you will get away with it, but you will always be found out. You'll always be found out because random drug tests will always find you out. Don't make any mistake about it. Don't be the example. Set the example. Don't take that stuff. It's not for you. It doesn't enhance you. It only hurts you. It takes away and now blemishes your career in some fashion. Whether it's Pete Rose gambling on his own team will never be in the Hall of Fame. I think he should. I think those rules need to be talked about. I think that when you talk about steroids and how that was part of Sammy Sosa's and McGuire's game, they should be banned from the Hall of Fame for life, just like Pete Rose is. Call apples to apples. Call it what it is. It's cheating. It's bending of the rules. They have no business being in the Hall of Fame. Nobody does. If you're going to cheat, get out of the business. Don't cry wolf. Okay? But again, if you're Major League Baseball, do you make exceptions to the rule because there are numbers associated? Well, Pete Rose has the numbers. So Pete Rose has the numbers. So he's belong in the Hall of Fame because he cheated on his team? I don't know. Maybe. If you're going to allow somebody who's been known to use steroids, who got tested for steroids, who got found out about steroids, and you're still going to put him in the Hall of Fame, you need to check the procedure. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. What do you think about that, Lou? What are your thoughts on that?
There is something wrong. There is something wrong with that. But they should change some of these rules on like who gets in the Hall of Fame and who should. I think Rose deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Who do you think belongs in the Hall of Fame? If you had to pick three guys that have been known to use steroids back in the day or cheated, would you put Sosa in, McGuire in, or Pete Rose in? If you had those three choices.
I would put Rose in.
Why?
Rose didn't really do anything wrong except for betting on his team. And back in the day, a lot of people did that. They didn't get caught. They weren't really breaking, really hurting anybody else. They were just doing it themselves.
Right, but you're hurting the rules. You're bending the rules to fit what you want, to fit your role, what you want to do with them. That's cheating. It's cheating.
So is using steroids.
Exactly. So is using steroids, or betting on your team, or deflating footballs in the NFL. You are altering the dynamics of the game in some form or another. All of those rules that were broken need to be amended for. So Tom Brady served a 4-game suspension. He should have been banned from the NFL for an entire year. But that didn't happen. But you have other guys. It's Brady's fault. I think it's Brady's fault.
No, because Goodell only gave him 4 games. I mean, he should have gave him more than that. But no, but they went easy on him.
Well, they went easy on him because they figured that it wasn't the fact that he got rid of his phone. And of course, Murphy, you're probably listening to this. I know you are. But when you talk about bending the rules, 4 games. If I had this conversation with somebody who's a pure fan, a Bostonian, who believes that what happened to Tom Brady was wrong and he shouldn't have received any suspension at all, is looking through a box of Fruit Loops. Because he deserved every single game and deserved more so because you're altering the game. How many players does anybody know? 216-539-9967. I have 5 minutes left. Who do you believe should be in the Hall of Fame? You can interact with me on Twitter. apart from those guys who have either bet on the game or have used steroids in the game, if you had 3, and I'll run a poll on this as soon as I'm done, about who belongs in the Hall of Fame, who are your 3? Who are your 3? Tell me your 3. You can pick whatever you want, whoever you want. You got to do your homework, but you tell me what 3. I have Sosa, McGuire, or Pete Rose. I like to use those guys as an example because they use an example.
What about Canseco?
Jose Canseco, no. No. Jose Canseco, former Oakland A? No, absolutely not. No. Sorry. No.
Ouch.
Nope. Sorry. Look, if you're a commissioner of NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, there should be a set criteria, which there is, but you should also not make exceptions because the guy was great, or he won 3 rings, or 4 rings, or 1 ring, or he set a passing record, or he had a huge ERA, a small ERA and was an excellent batter, or, home run king, or what have you. Take whatever you want to use and grab out of that little bag of goodies there. Because if you violate the rules, each one of those rules that were broken should serve a certain type of penance for them. If you're a broadcaster, as an example, and you're disagreeing with an organizational message that I was talking about earlier with Remy, if you're the organization, you should lay the smack down and put the hammer down on guys who speak out of turn. And I believe he was out of turn. My professional experience dictates to me he was speaking out of turn. Shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have even alluded to it. It's one of those things where less is more. Well, that's exactly what it was. Lou, thank you, man. I appreciate you hanging on.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that was Lou. And, of course, I had Ray Fittipaldo on. Of course, tomorrow we're talking Penguins hockey and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And, of course, you'll never know. I can't give it up. I can't give it up. You'll have to tune in tomorrow to figure out. Anyway, this is Rudy Reyes of the Rude Dog Show at WBLZSports.com. Make sure you go to SeatGiant.com. You want the experience, get it from them. It's SeatGiant.com. Use the code RudeDog, and you get a little something off of your purchase. And thank you for tuning in. It's been a great hour. I look forward to doing it again tomorrow. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show at WBLZSports.com. I'll see you then.